Okay, so let's create some materials for the models that we created so far. So we have the sword shield, the table, the chairs, and the cup. We can see them here in the outliner. So we do have a sky dome light here. If we go here in the renderer, Arnold, and press play, that's what we got. A very even white light around the characters, where we can only get those little contact shadows that we call ambient occlusion, and no texture at all. So how can we create some textures here? Let's close the outliner and turn on the hypershade. You can click here to call the hypershade. In my case, I have a second setup where I already have the hypershade here. And let's concentrate on this first. Let's hide the sword and shield and concentrate on this. In this case, I'll need two materials. We're gonna create a wood material for the table, and I'm gonna create a second wood material, different texture, for the cup. So we're gonna be using Arnold materials. So I'm gonna go to Arnold, shader, and AI standard surface. That's the standard Arnold material, and we're gonna call this wood table. And we are gonna find a preset here. Arnold has some different presets for different materials. Unfortunately, there isn't any preset for wood. So what I like to do is to find something that's gonna be kind of similar in terms of reflexivity and the specular, how much it reflects light or not. So in this case, I'm gonna get something like clay, and I'm gonna get a clay blend. Blend is how much it's gonna blend with the texture that we're gonna be applying. So let's get blend 50%, and I'm gonna change the color applying a texture. So I'm gonna go here to color, apply a file node, and then I'm gonna go to my texture folder, and I'm gonna find a wood material that I think is gonna be good. I think I'm gonna get this hackberry, and I'm gonna open this. So let's graph this material here. So I can click here to clean everything in the node editor, right click over the material and select graph network. Now we see the whole material here. We can make this icon a little bit bigger, clicking here, so we can see the material of the icon there. You can actually do this for all of the nodes. So what I have here, the hackberry texture is connected to the base color, and we have this place to the texture, which tells my how this is going to be applied to geometry. So let's apply this to the table, hover over the material, assign material to selection, and boom, you don't see anything. Why not? That's why, because you need to turn this button here, so textures. So you click this, and then we're gonna see the textures. So let's turn on here. So we start to see something that resembles wood. I wanna change my background so we get something that is a little bit more interesting, so we can check the reflections of the material, because even though it is wood, you still have some reflection in any wood material. So I'm gonna select the dome light, And here on the attribute editor, we have some different nodes. You're going to select the sky dome light shape. And here in the color, you're going to click here and you're going to select a different file. If you don't have the file node, you select the file node, then you select the texture. In this case, I'm gonna select this panorama. And good. Okay, so now we need to change some things here in our texture. Let's stop this for a moment and let's hide the chairs in the cup, and let's concentrate on the table. If you look in the table here, you're gonna notice it looks kind of fine here, even though we would need more repetition so we wouldn't get that pixelation and blurred look. But here on the side is not nice. Here is stretched. That's because the way the texture is being projected on this surface. Let me turn on here in polygon modeling the UV editor so you understand what is going on. If I select my object, I see the texture that I have in my object and the UVs. The UVs are the way Maya projects the 2D surface in the 3D surface in the 2D surface. We're gonna later on learn how to manually edit this, so we're gonna be able to control this better. But this is a more advanced topic. The only thing you need to know right now, it's because originally this was a cube and we created different faces. Now the UVs are not covering all the structure of the 3D object. So we would need to either redo and edit the UVs, which, as I said, we're gonna learn how to do that later, or we need to use a different type of UV projection, and that's what we're gonna be doing. We are gonna close this. We're gonna go here to Maya utilities, and we're gonna look for the projection utility. And there we have it, projection. It is this little node here. We can now select the color, put the color here in the projection, and then the out color is gonna go to the base color. What the projection node led us to do is to kind of recreate the UVs of the object without having to actually edit the UVs. So you can click here and you have different types of projections. The one we want is the one called triplanar. The triplanar will project from 3 different planes, so it's gonna cover all the areas of the object. We can change some of the elements of the texture placement using the 2D texture node here, but it's better if we select the projection node and we click the interactive placement button, and Maya is gonna ask if we want to create a placement node, and I'm gonna click yes. And if I'm gonna hit an outliner, we're gonna see Maya created this place 3D texture node. This is what is controlling the projection here, and I can move this as any object. So I can move this, and you see we change on the side here. If I move here, I'm going to change up here, and I can scale this, scale down. Actually, I think to look more realistic, if it is too little, we're going to see too many repetitions. We want something like this. This is gonna be good enough. And we could rotate this if we wanted, but would make sense only on the side here. Looking good. To understand a little bit better about the different projections, you can actually come here and change the projection. You understand what is happening. For example, planar, it becomes just a plan. The Place 3D is just a plane. Spherical, it is a sphere. Cylindrical, it is a cylinder. So if you select here, you see how this is projecting in our object. But the one we want really is the triplanar. It is the most efficient one. It gets out the sides of the object. This is a very efficient way of applying the textures and controlling everything without having to do UV. The only problem is when you move the object, the texture kind of floats in place. So to avoid this, you would have to do some different techniques, but one of the techniques that you can do is simply to get this Place 3D texture and parent to the table. So I can middle mouse click and drag to the table. So now it's going to be a child of the table, and if I move the table, the texture will be in place. And if I want to change the projection, I can always come here, click in the Place 3D texture and move the texture around. Very efficient. Okay, so we have the texture of the table. We can turn on the Arnold preview to take a look, and looks good so far, but it's too reflective. Reflect too much for something that is supposed to be made of wood. So what I'm gonna do is to apply a second texture. We're gonna apply a normal texture. Remember in the video about the different types of textures that you can use. You can use the base color, you can use a normal map, and a specular color. We're gonna be using only the base color and normal maps in this exercise. So I'm gonna go here and look for the place where I should put the normal map. In this case, it's gonna be the geometry and the bump mapping. So I'll click in the bump mapping, and instead of just creating a file, I have to go to Maya utilities and select the bump 2D utility. It's gonna create a special node that will let us interpret a normal map correctly. So I'm gonna change the use as from bump to tangent space normals. And now in the bump value, I'm gonna click here and I'm gonna look for a file node. And then I'm gonna go to my textures. And I'm gonna look for the normal map of this hackberry texture that I used. So I have the normal map here. The problem is I need to have the projection too. So I'm gonna click the projection ahead plus Control D. It's gonna create a duplicate. And now get here, put the out color here, and then the out color and the bump value. Oh, sorry, the bump should be always the alpha channel. So you have to open this, look for the out alpha, and then you put on the bump. Then we close here, and now we have a much more realistic table. So what is the normal doing? The normal map is creating those little imperfections here on the surface, and it is making the reflection more realistic. So we still get a little bit of a reflection of the background, but it's not like that super shiny and reflective. If we unhide the chairs, this will be a little bit more clear. You can see we have received the shadows, a little bit of reflection of the background, but it's not like super strong. So it really looks like wood here. So I'm gonna apply the same material to all the chairs, and I'm gonna create a new material for my little cup here. So instead of let's clean the node editor here. Instead of recreating the whole shading network, and that's what we call a material in Maya, a shading network, because it's a connection of nodes. It's a network. I'm gonna select this material. I'm gonna go to edit, duplicate, and copy. Duplicate shading network. This is gonna copy the material. And now I'm gonna change the name here to cup. No, wood cup. And let's clean this and let's graph the network. We're gonna click in the nodes with the files, and we're gonna change the files. So instead of this Hackberry, I'm gonna use, I don't know, this rough cut maybe. Yeah, let's use this rough cut red. And then I'm gonna look for the rough cut red normal, and I'm gonna select the cup, and I'm gonna apply this to the cup. Looks okay, but I think the projection is too big for this one, so as we duplicated the material, we automatically created a second 3D texture projection. So actually I'm gonna move from the table, and I'll make this a child of the cup, and we can manipulate this now to get to the side we want. You can see this is definitely the one of the cup. So let's scale this down. It's gonna be more almost the size of the cup. And we can move until we are happy with what we're seeing here. Okay, so far so good. Let me save this. Okay, so let's focus now on creating the materials for the sword and shield, which because they are gonna be a little bit more complicated. So I'm gonna select the table and the chairs. I'm gonna hide it. I'm gonna hide them, and then I'm gonna unhide the sword and shield, and I'm gonna focus on them. So let's figure out how many materials we need here. We need one wood material that we already have. We could use just the same wood material that we used in the table, for example, or we could create a new one. Let's create a new one. So in this case, I would have one one here for the wood in the shield, a dark metal for the straps around the shield, a gold metal for the center of the shield. I need a material for the straps of the shield, and I can use the same material for the handle of the sword, and I need a material for the blade. So we need 5 different materials. So let's first create the materials just focusing on the color, and then we'll go back and apply the textures for each material. So let's clean here the node editor, and let's go to Arnold Shader AI standard surface. So let's create 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay, so dark metal. We can go to dark metal, and we can go to the preset and select something that will look good. Let's go to Chrome 50%. Selects the shield so we can test this, apply material, and not looking very like Chrome, right? So let's preset. Okay, 9%, Chrome 75%, Chrome 50%. It should be like darker, something like this. Okay, this is just a reference for the color because we're gonna plug some textures later. Okay, then we need a wood. So let's call this wood. Wood, like we did with the other ones, is gonna be a clay 50%. The wood color would be something like this. And I just test a little bit. It would definitely be much darker. Something like this. Again, this is just an approximation of the materials, just with the colors. Then we would have a gold. And this, we actually have a gold preset here. So I didn't like this gold preset that much in terms of reflection. Okay, 50% maybe. Gold 7%. Okay, this looks like more like a gold. And then we would need straps. This preset will be, let's see what I could use here. Rubber, clay. Let's try the rubber 50%. This would be some darker red, going to the brownish color. And again, this is just a reference for the color. And finally, we would need the blade. The blade could be a simple chrome, I think. Preset chrome 75 white. Let's test on the sword here. Okay, maybe blue chrome 75. Even stronger, blend 9%. Yeah, I think that's gonna work as a blade. Okay, now we have all the materials with the colors. What I'm gonna do is to apply the material only with the colors so we can test the textures after we already have each material in the correct face of the object. So let's start with the shield. So as I said, first dark metal in most of the shield. Then we're gonna go to face mode. And we're gonna, let me turn off the Arnold viewport. I'm gonna select the paint tool, the paint selection tool, and I'm gonna select with symmetry all the faces that I need to be wood. Okay, those should be wood. And now we're gonna select anything that should be gold. I will go back to my normal selection tool, select some loops, and that's, I think, the only thing that would be gold in the shield. So apply the material, and now the straps. And let's apply the strap materials. So far so good in terms of getting the correct colors. Now let's apply, actually let's make this wood color a little bit more like wood, a little bit darker here. Yeah, more like this. Okay, so let's select the sword now, turn off the Arnold preview, face mode. We're gonna apply the dark metal around everything. Actually, object mode, dark metal, and then we're gonna go to face mode, and nothing is gonna be wood. We're gonna have gold, so let's go for what is gonna be gold here. It's gonna be gold. The internal details here. And that's good. Gold. Now the handle is gonna be straps, and now the blade. Oh, I select a loop by mistake, so let's undo this until I deselect this crazy loop here. Okay, and let's go back here. Okay, so far so good. Let's apply the blade material, deselect, and press the Arnold render preview. Okay, so far so good in terms of having the correct reflections and colors that we wanted. So, but now we want to make this better, like we did with the table, and put some textures. So let's clean the node editor. Let's save this file, and let's graph the wood. And we can come here and change the color, file, and we're gonna find the wood we want to use here. Let's see what I could have here. This one we didn't use, but I don't think that's gonna look fine with a shield. I think let's try this one. As we can see, we have this mess of a projection here because again we have those crazy UVs, so we need the projection node to correct this. So we go to Maya, utilities, and projection, as we did before. Get this out color here, and the out color goes there. And here in the projection, we already got something really good, the planner, because that's actually what we need. A planner looks pretty good. We don't even need to create the 3D projection in this case, I think, unless we want to fine tune here. Let's create it just for the sake of it. Create the permanent node. Now I have a new place 3D texture here, and a little bit far away from the object. As you can see, I can move around and reposition. Let's put here in the center, and we could rotate this, make like this, make like this. I'm gonna put this like 45 degrees so it looks a little bit more interesting. And as you notice, we are using a planar projection, so that's why the gizmo is a plane. And we're gonna click and drag this, and we're gonna make this a child of the shield. So now if I move the shield, the texture will move with me. And so far so good. Now let's move on. Let's go to the dark metal. Oh no, before I go to the dark metal, I want to put the normal texture here. So to create the normal map, we're gonna do a little bit different this time. We're gonna select the wood, and like we did before with the table, we're gonna go to geometry, bump mapping. We're gonna click here, but instead of selecting in Maya Utilities a bump 2D, we're gonna select a bump 3D. And the reason we need a bump 3D is that because we're gonna receive a projection, and a projection transforms a 2D texture in a 3D texture. So you cannot use the bump 2D, you need to use the bump 3D. So we're gonna get this projection that we have here. We're gonna press Ctrl D, and then we're gonna open this. You click here and click this button here, and we're gonna get the Alt Alpha and click to the bump value. Then we can close this, and then in projection we can go to the image, put a file node, and then we can select the normal map for that texture, which is the normal map for the American walnut. Let's make the icons bigger so we see the logic here. So we have the wood texture connecting to the projection, that connects to the base color. Normal goes to the projection, goes to the bump, and goes to the bump channel. Because I duplicated the projection, those two projections are using the same place 3D texture, so my normal map is in the same place of my wood. So the reflection is looking good, look like a wood. There isn't like extreme unnecessary reflections. So far so good. So let's go to the other materials. Let's go to the dark metal. Let's close the node here, and I'm gonna graph the dark metal. Right click, graph network, and so we're gonna do the same process that we did before. Well, I'm gonna do in all of those. I'm gonna select the textures and put in each one of those. So it's gonna be a little bit redundant, so I'm gonna actually accelerate in this part, because that's basically what I'm gonna be doing for all the materials here and the materials in the sword. And so I'm gonna accelerate the video a little bit, and then I'll come back and talk about the rest of it. So now I finished putting the textures in down the materials. The technique was the same. There was like some slight differences in some materials, like the gold one here, for example. I didn't apply the normal map, because for the blade and for the gold detail I wanted to be a little bit more shiny. Then no need for the normal map, but the process for the rest and everything was the same. Most of the materials here, like the strap, I put like projection, and both in the normal and in the base color ones. So same basic material, base color going through projection, base color channel, normal map, projection, bump 3D, and it goes to the normal camera. Not super difficult to do. And so now we just need to create some nice cameras so we can render this. So the best way to create a camera is to go here in the view, create camera from view, and that's gonna create a camera here. It's gonna be called perspective. I'm gonna call this Swartz and shield cam. Now we can click on the camera here and go to the cam shape, and we can change the focal length to change the lenses of the camera. Instead of 35, which is very close to the human eye, we're gonna go for something like 18, which is a wide angle lens. To look, this is gonna make like the what we're gonna be rendering a little bit more interesting. We want to see the resolution gate here, so I can go to camera settings, resolution gate, so we can really frame better the object the way it's gonna be rendered. I think 18 for the camera was a little bit too much, so let's try a 24 maybe. I think that's fine. Okay, that's gonna be, let's see around here. And let's unhide the table and the chair. Let's go back to the perspective camera. So let's unhide the chair and the table. And let's look for them. I'm gonna turn off the Arnold preview. Turn on again. Let's create a camera. Let's put a resolution gate. Let's change the name to table chairs cam, and let's change the focal length to 18. Okay, let's save this. And now let's render our two scenes. So we have different ways of render our images, but let's try using the Arnold view. So go to the Arnold shelf, press the Arnold render view, and I'll just press play here. The image is gonna render first with noise, and then the noise is gonna be cleaned. Now we have our nice final version of the table. Let's go to File, Save Image. The format of the image will be the one we selected here. In this case, it's going to be JPEG. So save image and module 4 images, and it's gonna be table and chairs with textures. And now let's change our camera. Let's go to Sword and Shield. Let's move this a bit. Let's change the camera here. Let's wait for the image to clean up all the noise here. So we have the final image, file, save image, sword, shield with textures. Save, and there we go. Now we have the two images with all the objects texture: the sword, the shield, and our nice table with a little cup. So that's all for now. That's how you texture your objects and how you render a nice image in Maya. See you guys next module.